everyone, I'm Melissa from Knitting the Stash, and this is episode 46 in this series. Welcome. It's lovely to see you if you're a returning viewer, and you are most welcome if you're new. This is a podcast about spinning and knitting, but mostly it's about garment design and DIY and modifications and that kind of thing. So if you like those things, you're in the right place. I come to you from Urbana, Illinois in the United States. I actually was hoping that I'd film this episode in New York, where we spent the last week for the American Thanksgiving holiday, but our dogs went a little crazy, and we had some family commitments, and it was just a little bit too much to handle. So it is Sunday after Thanksgiving back in Illinois, and I have a kind of quiet, maybe if the dogs aren't barking too much, Sunday to hang out with you guys a little bit. Let's see, what should I tell you? You can find me just about everywhere as Knitting the Stash, obviously on YouTube, on Ravelry and Instagram, and on the blog, which is knittingthestash.wordpress.com, and that's where I post all the show notes for all the episodes. So if you're ever looking for something on any of these episodes, the show notes are over there on the blog, and you should be able to search for them for patterns, designers, tutorials, all that kind of good stuff. So today, what do I have today? I have like so much stuff because I was supposed to cast a week ago. It's unusual for me to go 3 weeks in between casting. But what do I have? I have a finished object. Actually, I'm going to take you to the past for that one because it was a sample knit from for Kelbourne Woolens, and it is actually the reason why I'm calling this episode Summer in December, because it is the sample knit was a tank top knit in cotton, and I was knitting in the middle of November as the snow started falling here, and I managed to get outside with Spencer and get some photographs of it and everything in a snowstorm, so we're calling it Summer in December. I also have a beautiful finished object that I did not knit. This is from Debbie, who's a member of the guild that I'm in, and she's a dear friend, and she knit up this beautiful wrap that I'll talk about in this episode. I also have, let's see, so a couple of finds for you, and an announcement of the giveaway winner for the LB Hand Knits Facing North ebook, and another giveaway to announce. So there's a lot going on in this episode as usual, and I will try to get through most of it. What should you guys know? Let's see, I'm trying to give you like a life update from last time. Last time we were on the prison bus, it was a few weeks ago. I had a boot on. I am no longer in the boot. I'm out of the boot, which is awesome, and it's been 4 weeks now. Turns out you can have an old broken ankle. I didn't know that. I broke my ankle back when I was 15 or 16 doing Hwardo, which is a Korean martial art, which I did for about 10 or 12 years. And at one point I did a jump high kick, landed on that ankle, shattered it 5 places, broke it, no walking on it, crazy cast, missed my graduation, all that kind of stuff, right? And it turns out you can have a bone that never healed for 23 years show up in an x-ray. And so if you guys remember, I like twisted my foot and it popped and it made all this horrible stuff 4 weeks ago. And Convenient Care told me, oh, it's broken. And then another x-ray at the doctor's office was like, yeah, it's probably broken, but it might be an old break. And then they finally confirmed it after 3 weeks that the break was an old break. So the good news is I'm out of the cast. The good news is it's a really bad sprain, and I am just wearing a brace when I walk around, but I can walk on it and everything else is getting back to normal. So for those of you who watch episode to episode, that's been your foot update. I am well, I'm out of the boot, which is the main thing, and I can get back to most normal activities. Yay! And in the meantime, I kept myself busy with some knitting that you'll see. So let's see, what else can I show? I think I'm going to jump right into the finished object for you. So I'm going to switch you over to Melissa of the past to show you this beautiful sample that I did for Kelbourne Woolens. Here you go. Hey everyone, I'm coming to you from the past, and that is because I finished a sample knit, which is my FO for the week, and wanted to record a quick segment about it before I shipped it back off to Kelbourne Woolens, where it will end up in a trunk show, I believe, for the next line, the spring line, as it's coming out. So this is the tank, and actually I don't have to go too far to be able to show you the image of it, because it is on the back of the current interweave knits for winter 2019. Here it is. It is the Desert Queen tank from the Mojave collection, and it is a really beautiful kind of tank out of cotton and linen that I'll tell you about as we go along here. But this is a version of it that is up right now on Interweave Knits. So this pattern is called Desert Queen, and it's by Megan Kelly. And it is part of a collection that actually came out, I believe it came out last year in June of 2018, but they're kind of redoing their samples to get some different sizes for the trunk shows that are going to be going around, so they asked me if I would sample knit for them. And Kelbourne Woolens is, they produce some really awesome yarns, and I think, if I'm remembering right, I think the first shawl I ever knit was out of Kelbourne Woolens lace weight yarn, and it's really beautiful. So this particular tank is knit out of Mojave, which is 60% cotton and linen, 40% linen, and it's about 185 yards for every 50 grams. And for this particular top, I used about 3 skeins plus just about 10 grams of a 4th skein, and that included my swatching. So here is my swatch, so you can see the fabric up close a little bit better. So this is cotton and linen, and it has a really nice kind of stretch to it, a nice bounce. It has a great drape, and it's really soft. This is machine washable, and I machine washed this swatch actually twice because I did the swatch first in the size 4 needles, and I wasn't quite getting gauged, so I went up to a size 5 needles. So this swatch has been washed twice over, and you can see that it's starting to really like soften up very, very nicely, as one would expect with any kind of cotton, linen, hemp, any kind of plant-based fabric that I've worked, or fiber that I've worked with. Once you start machine washing them or just hand washing them, they soften up so much. My husband's sweater that I knit out of hemp, you know, it felt a little crinkly at first, and then once I washed it, and we've washed it a few times now, it just softened right up, and it's really, really nice and comfortable to wear. So this colorway is coral, and this is what it looks like in the cake. It's a really bright, vibrant color, and I was kind of particularly happy to be knitting this right now because it is November, and if I were to turn this camera around, you would see that we had our first snow last night. So, you know, there's like Christmas in July, there's also got to be like summer in December or November, something like that. So this is like a breath of fresh air during this time of year as we're transitioning into the cold, dark months of winter. Let me tell you a little bit about the tank top. It is knit from the bottom up in pieces and seamed, which is an important thing to know. A lot of the sweaters I've been showing you of late have been from Albina of LB Hand Knits collection, and a lot of her stuff is top down. This is bottom up and seamed, which means that you start down here at the bottom with your cast on, you're working a little bit of garter, and then you're working up the front piece all the way up to the armpits, separating decreasing for the front panel. Then you're separating off the left and right side, and you're doing the neckline at the same time as you're doing the rest of the armhole shaping. And at the same time you're doing all of that, you're also doing this eyelet pattern, which I think you can see it there, yeah. This eyelet pattern starts at one edge of the front panel and kind of grows up this way, and by the time you get to these more separate, you know, front panel sections for the shoulders, you start another eyelet section here and here. So it's a really beautiful, it's just a nice touch to the pattern. It gives it, you know, what would be a fairly, you know, regular tank top, just gives it that little touch of class, I think, and makes it really quite beautiful. So let me show you the back panel, which is basically the same as the front panel, except that you're not working the eyelets and you're not working any kind of neck shaping in this direction. You are working some short rows up at the top of the back of the neck to kind of lift it up just a little bit, and you can see that on the mannequin. It has a kind of nice rise there. There are short rows as well on those two front shoulder panels, and all of that just creates some nice shaping. This is a pattern that has some really nice details. It's by a designer that's obviously put a lot of thought into how something fits on someone's body, especially a garment like this, which is going to have a lot of drape and it's going to hang from the body in a particular kind of way, these short rows here and the short rows that are incorporated at the very top here really help that kind of just sit perfectly. And you can see it on the mannequin. It sits very, very nicely on the shoulders and creates a nice line, I think, you know, figure-wise. Let's see. It has A-line shaping, so you're not doing your decreases all the way on the sides. You're doing your decreases in the middle, the front, and the back, and kind of working up this way, which gives it a kind of nice flare, which is what I think a lot of us want in a summer garment. We don't want like a really sticky, skin-tight summer garment all the time. You know, you want something that's breathable, and these A-line decreases really do that for you. Let's see, what else? Seaming. Seaming is fun. Seaming is one of those things that I don't always want to do, but when I'm doing it and I'm kind of in the groove, I feel like some kind of master of the universe. Like if a seam comes out well, like this one did, where you cannot even see it on the right side of the work, I feel like I have done my job. On the wrong side of the work, you can see that it's a basic mattress stitch. So it produces a kind of nice line on the inside and absolutely nothing on the outside, which is the brilliance of the mattress stitch, I think. Some other really nice details of this. It does have a kind of 3 needle bind off for this very top seam, which if you're working with plant fibers, drapey fibers, you really want to add these seams for structure. So these seams aren't just, it's not just like, oh, I wanted to knit a front panel and a back panel. It's like, there's a purpose to this. This adds so much structure, these side seams, to this garment so that it will sit right on your body. Same with the 3 needle bind off in the shoulders. If you're not working a top-down sweater with a kind of yoke, and you're not looking for that kind of look, you're looking for something with more structure, I always like the 3 needle bind off at the top because it helps to create a lot of structure up in that shoulder area where you're going to have a lot of movement, and so that the fabric will have something to hang on as it hangs off both sides of your body there. So a really nice choice in that way. It has some really nice finishing work. You know, the armholes aren't just left, neither is the neckline just left. You do pick up stitches and you do some just some very basic finishing work, but I can tell you the difference between the unfinished neck and arms and the finished neck and the finished armholes is just a world of difference. And it creates this really beautiful line. It's almost like a double edge or something along that armhole, and it's really, really quite beautiful. So the pattern, I would say, let's see, skill-wise, it's a fairly simple pattern. I think a lot of people would be able to knit it up, especially if you were, you know, maybe an advanced beginner who had some skills. You're just looking at some basic decreases. The eyelets are charted partially, and then you're on your own a little bit, but I think you can figure it out. You'll be okay. You need a 3 needle bind off, and you need some seaming experience. So that's why I'd say like advanced beginner, border, you know, adventurous advanced beginner. Someone who wants to try out some new things, learn a few new skills, but on a relatively simple garment that really will produce beautiful results, which is, it's always what we want, right? We want to do all this work, and then the tiny little bits of finishing, you know, the tiny little bits of thought that went into this pattern really do make it worthwhile. So I had a great experience test knit or sample knitting for these guys, and I would do it again if they would have me. And this particular yarn is really nice. I haven't really worked, with the exception of Spencer sweater, I haven't worked with plant fibers or plant-based yarn in a while, and it's a really refreshing thing to do, especially, like I said, as we go into winter. I've got all my wool out. I'm making like every wool sweater. I'm wearing all my sweaters. It's fun to be able to work with a kind of cotton linen blend and see what the differences are and think about how it all works out. One thing I would note about working with a cotton and linen blend is that if you're used to wool and the way that wool is a little bit forgiving with your stitches, with your tension, I will say a cotton linen blend is not going to be as forgiving. So you want to make sure that you practice your tension, that you're working on needles that you're really comfortable with, that you can be very consistent with as you're knitting, because any kind of tension errors, even the most minor, will show up much more in a cotton linen blend than they will in a wool blend, just because wool is more, depending on the wool, most wool is more elastic and is going to fill in the kind of spaces that your tension might have gaps in, but a cotton linen blend is not going to do that for you. So you want to get your tension up to speed before you go for a project like this if you want to have a nice finished result. So yeah, Desert Queen, Megan Kelly, great pattern, fun to knit for Kelbourne Woolens, and I think I will send you all back to the future now. I hope you guys enjoyed that blast from the past, and the reason that this episode is called Summer in December. I had a lot of fun with that knit, and it's all of these segments I often have to kind of tape them or film them, like when I say tape. Wow, that's like old school, because we used to have VHS tapes that you'd put in these huge cameras that you'd hold on your shoulder or whatever, right? So for the next generation now, like when someone says, I got it on tape, right? It's like cassette tapes, VHS tapes. We don't do that anymore. It's all digital. Oh my God. Anyway, I have to get this stuff on film because I often have to ship off my samples or my tests or whatever they are pretty quickly after I finish them. So I often have these little segments for you guys, as you know, that are kind of like blast from the past. Like 2 weeks ago, I finished something and got it on film. And even film isn't real anymore because it's all digital. Wow, I'm really kind of freaking out right here. So all of this knitting that I've been doing in terms of sample and test knitting has gotten me thinking a little bit more about that whole process versus product knitter debate that a lot of people engage in, and you might read about it on blogs or hear about it on episodes of people who are doing these casts and things. But it makes me think, like, knitting is knitting. Like, whether I'm knitting a cotton top for Kelbourne Woolens or I'm working on a sweater. Right now I'm working on a beautiful sweater. This is a cool kind of construction from a Carol Feller pattern that I'll show you guys in the next episode. Whether or not I'm doing a sample knit, which I'm going to do for June Cashmere again, or my own stuff. I just think for me, knitting is knitting. Like, I just want to be knitting. It's great if I can be knitting and learning something new. Like if a pattern challenges me in a certain kind of way. But I really just love the meditation of the knitting itself. Like, having something on my needles, doesn't matter what it is. If I have it with me and I can knit, I'm pretty darn happy. So I think that's why I call myself a process knitter, because I want the process. The products, to me, some of them work out, some of them don't, some of them, and I say that not because they don't work. I love modifying things to make them work. But they don't always work because I'm a pretty practical person about my knitwear. What I wear in the winter, I'm always cold. So I want to have like sweaters and sweatshirts that actually have collars and keep me warm. But I love knitting things that are all kinds of different constructions that may or may not be something that I actually want to wear. So that's why I think process, product, like knitting is knitting. But it also, all of this got me thinking about selfish knitting and how there's that whole term of selfish knitting, and a lot of people start talking about it, especially this time of year when many folks are out, working on hats and mittens and scarves and socks and all kinds of little presents for everyone on their holiday list. And then they think to themselves, or you start to see blog posts that come up, they're like, oh, I want to get back to my selfish knitting and, knitting for myself and things like that. And I don't know, I think it's wonderful if you're knitting for other folks. It's wonderful if you're knitting for yourself. But as a process knitter, I guess I don't like to think about selfish knitting, because I feel like all knitting is kind of like for me. Like whether I give away the product doesn't matter. Like, I'm gaining by just doing the knitting itself. But I'd love to know what you guys think about that. I really am curious what you guys think about these ideas of like selfish knitting or process knitting or product knitting. So if you have some thoughts, please share in the comments. Love to get a conversation going. I'll open up a Ravelry thread for us as we're going toward the holidays about process, product, selfish knitting, all that kind of good stuff. And hopefully we'll have a little conversation about it. That would be kind of fun. In the meantime, I have one other finished object to show you. Now again, I didn't knit this. This was knit by Debbie, who is a dear friend and a member of the Champaign-Urbana Spinners and Weavers Guild. And she knit this beautiful, it's called the Apex wrap. And she actually knitted out of KnitCrate yarn. And I've told you guys about KnitCrate before. They've offered to send me a bunch of yarn every month to kind of try out and talk about on the podcast if I like it and things. And I've knit a few things from their yarn. I'll get a skein that I really love, and I'll just find something that I really love, another pattern for it or whatever. This is knit in Fleece Artist Tree Wool. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I get it all right. This is a space dyed yarn, and it was from the May, 2018 Artisan Crate. And I think it was as I recall, it was 2 skeins of yarn. And it's a space-dyed yarn because different people define space-dyed yarn differently, but it's a yarn that has at least 2, maybe more colors, you know, dyed all together, so that you end up with different kinds of color pooling, different kinds of variation in the yarn. So this one's interesting because, and I'm going to try to stretch it out across the mannequin here a little bit, you can see the color pooling in this one is it creates this really cool diamond effect, which I thought was really pretty awesome in the pattern when I saw the pattern from KnitCrate. And then Debbie knitted up. She's so fast. She was like, I'll take care of that. And she really wanted to knit it up. So she knitted up, and this color pooling with these diamonds is just, it produces a really, really cool effect. It's not perfectly even across the whole thing, but you do get that general sense of the pooling into these diamonds, which I love. So the Apex pattern is still available. The yarn itself, I think, is not available because it was a special KnitCrate thing. But KnitCrate is still coming out with these boxes every month. They've got a sock box, an artisan box, a regular sock, an indie dyed something or other. I mean, like a lot of different options and price ranges and stuff. So you can't get this yarn, I don't think, but Fleece Artist Tree Wool may be doing other space-dyed versions of this kind of yarn, and I'll put all this in the show notes. But the Apex wrap, which is by Kari Helen Rain, is available on Ravelry, and you can download it if you're interested in creating something similar. And you know, I'm thinking if you were to take like a cool, like a variegated sock yarn, or another space-dyed yarn that's, I think this might be more of a DK weight. It's not quite worsted, it's more like a DK weight. But if you were to take a skein that you have that has some variation in it, that has some kind of funky colors, this would create a kind of, this pattern creates this color pooling, in part because it has this like a diamond pattern built into it. It's really interesting. Let's see if I can show you up close. You can see it's got this, this kind of texture built into it. And that helps the yarn pool in different kinds of ways, along with the fact that the yarn is space dyed. Anyway, I thought it was really beautiful, and I thought I'd share it with you guys because Debbie knitted up. It was kind of cool to see, and she's like, hey, do you want to put this on the podcast? I was like, oh yeah, that's great. More finished objects to show off. So again, Apex wrap by Kari Helene Rain, and that's the Fleece Artist Tree Wool, which is a space dyed yarn. So pretty darn cool. I just have a couple other little finds and things for you and some giveaway info. One of them is that I did a really fun yarn swap with Sarah, who is a buddy of mine in Australia, and she sent a couple of, we wanted to swap yarn so that each of us could get something kind of more local, you know, like something from Australia, and I sent her some yarn from the US. I actually sent her some yarn from Jennifer of Wild Lily Artisan Fibers. I think I got that order right. But Jennifer Geyer, who I've talked to you guys about before, she did most recently like a Pace and Presence yarn, which is beautiful. She skirts wool. She decides what composition the yarn is going to be. She dyes it herself. I mean, she does some beautiful work. And so I sent Sarah some of her wool, and I sent Sarah some of some yarn from Feederbrook Farms, from Lisa. Feederbrook Farms, and I have a bunch of Feederbrook Farm yarn, both dyed and plain, that I have in a tub that's for one of those versions of the Persian Dreams blanket. That's one of the things I'm using it for, and I just love it. It's really beautiful yarn. It's kind of like a 2-ply oftentimes, and it's a bunch of different kinds of fiber from her sheep on her farm. So the stuff that I have is often BFL, which is a blue-faced Leicester. So I sent that off to Sarah. And Sarah sent me in return some really cool stuff that I thought I'd show you. One is this white gum wool, which is an Australian merino. And if you guys have ever touched Australian merino, you know, it's softer. It just is. I mean, I tried to hand it to Spencer and say, like, do you feel how soft this is? But Spencer can't really feel softness. That's one of the things about him that's so endearing. But Australian merino it is softer, I think, than American merino. And I have some Australian merino fiber in my stash, and it's softer than American merino. So this is a beautiful white gum wool. And she also sent along kind of information about this particular company, and it's they say it's ethical superfine merino from the Tasmanian Midlands. And a couple of things that are cool about it is that they don't, I think it's called museling, this sheep, and so these sheep are raised on a single farm in the high Midlands of Tasmania. They graze on mostly native pastures where they can find the plants they need to keep healthy. The mothers and babies stay together. They've learned to forage in the landscape. And it's just no synthetic chemicals, fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides are used. So and the sheep have never been museled. God, I cannot say the word. It's mulesed. It's like museled, I think. But it's not muzzled, it's museled. So they don't have docked tails. So it's a cool company in that way. They're trying to do some really ethical sourcing of this yarn, and she sent this great color card, which I think it'll be, yeah, there we go. Camera's picking up on all the different colors. They have a boucle 5-ply and a 4 and 8-ply, and she sent me some of the 4-ply yarn, or the 8-ply yarn. Just beautiful stuff, and it was cool to hear the story about their wool. So a big thank you to Sarah for sending me some squishable softness from Australia and New Zealand. She also sent some beautiful little buttons and some little snacky treats, and it's a really fun exchange to do. If you ever have a chance to do a fiber exchange with someone in another country, around the world, I highly recommend it, because you never know what you're going to learn, what you're going to find out, what you're going to open in your surprise box, and it's always really, really fun. I've done it a couple times, and Sarah, this was definitely one of the tops. So thank you so much for sending such beautiful yarn. And the last find that I wanted to tell you guys about, I've been following Donna Smith designs for quite some time now, and she produces Lange yarn, which many of you probably have heard of if you're interested in thinking about place-based yarn and soulful stash and all that kind of stuff that Sarah of Fiber Trek is often talking about. So this is Lange yarn. This is Donna Smith designs, and I've been waiting for her 2017 clip to be processed in the mill and come out, because she is a designer who is in Shetland. She raises her own sheep and she mills her own yarn, and each year she comes out with a new clip, and up on the website for the longest time was the 2016 clip, which was pretty much sold out. So I was waiting for the 2017 clip to come out because I thought I'd have a better chance of getting some of the colors that I wanted to get. So this is her beautiful yarn. This is 100% Shetland wool from the Shetland Isles, and it is this is a DK weight, so it is 238 yards or 220 meters per 100 grams, and I just got one skein because I got a little kit for the Tunsmall hat. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, and she has this great dog in a lot of her Instagram feed and whatnot. So I'm trying to see if I can show you a close-up of the hat without showing you the pattern. Yeah, so you can see there she is with some of her sheep, and that is the hat that came in this kind of like kit. So I got both the pattern and the yarn and the bag all as part of this kit, and I think it's just a really great, I love supporting local or independent fiber artists, people who are taking care of their own animals, raising them, or milling their own yarn, or doing something that gets them involved in the process. And so I was really excited to see the 2017 clip come out, and she has a few colors left up on the website if you're interested in getting involved. This one is this is Speet is the shade. I think you can see it there. It's this beautiful gray. It's got some nice depth to it, really beautiful heather. But I just looked on her site, and she has some plain kind of white, which she calls Kexi. She has a kind of deep brown, which is called Linty. She has another gray, which is called Hagri, and they're all beautiful, and you can get kits for a bunch of different things. She has the hat. I think she has 2 hats, a few like shawls and scarves and things like that. And in some ways, because you're doing the shipping from Shetland, it makes sense to do a kit or to buy more than one skein of yarn, but it's nice to get out there and try to find ways to support these independent artists and shepherds and folks who are making their own yarns. So that's my finds for the week for you guys, little bits of info and fun. And the last thing on my list is the 2 giveaways. So the one giveaway that I'm going to announce the winner for now was for LB Hand Knits Facing North ebook. And as you guys know, I've been doing a bunch of test knitting for Albina of LB Hand Knits for this new collection, which is a collaboration between her and Apple Oaks Fiberworks, and they're kind of chunky, really beautiful chunky yarn. And the ebook has been released, I do believe, and one of you is going to win it, and that one of you is Wendy Brooks. Wendy Brooks, you are the winner. Congratulations. And if you will send me an email at knittingthestash@gmail.com, I will get you in touch with Albina so that you can claim your prize. Congratulations. And I have another giveaway for you guys for this week. And this giveaway comes from Perry, who is P. Winkle on Ravelry. And she has a beautiful shawl that she's just released, and it's called The Feel of Wind on Water. And I'm going to try to show it to you here. There it is. Feel of Wind on Water. It's a beautiful shawl. And Perry got in touch with me and offered you guys a couple things. One is a 20% discount for anybody who wants to knit this shawl and buy the pattern on Ravelry. The discount code is KTS, like knitting the stash 20, and I'll put the code down here on the screen so you can see it. So if you want to just buy the pattern, 20% off, and knit it yourself, go for it. But she's offered a free copy of the pattern to one of you. So I'd like to know what, I guess the question I'd ask, so that you can leave a comment and enter, would be what colors or what yarn would you want to use for this this shawl wrap kind of thing. And I will put a link to the shawl on Ravelry so you can check it out and see what it looks like. It has, I believe, 3 different colors in it. It's got like a kind of light creamy kind of color, the version that she did, a kind of yellow, and then a beautiful blue, purple kind of color. So a 3-color shawl. Let me know what kind of yarn you like to use for shawls, what colors you would pick, any of those kinds of bits of information, because it's fun for us to gather, when we gather together in these comments, to kind of see what other people are knitting with, where they're getting their yarn, what colors they're using. I always find it really helpful when I have a multicolored project to see what other people are knitting with, like which yarns did they choose, which colors did they put together. So I'd love to know your answer to that question. You can leave a comment here on the episode. You can leave a comment on the Ravelry thread that I'll open up, or over on the blog, and in a couple weeks time I will draw a winner for that beautiful pattern. So thank you so much, Perry, for putting this out there as a giveaway. I think it's a beautiful shawl. I downloaded the pattern. It's a really interesting pattern, and I think it'd be really fun knit. And when I have some time and clear needles, I'm looking forward to trying to check it out a little bit. But in the meantime, I want you guys, one of you guys, to win it. So let me know what colors you would put together in a 3-color shawl, or what yarns you would use, and you could be the winner of this particular pattern. I think that's all I have time for today. I need to get downstairs, take care of the puppies, and get some lunch. We were on the road all day yesterday getting home, so there wasn't a whole lot of like water and food and all that kind of like restfulness. So I'm gonna go take care of the body and the spirit a little bit. And it was lovely to hang out with you guys. Until next time, I hope you have some fun doing some knitting of your own process, product, selfish, whatever it is. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks for coming to hang out. Take care.